Welcome back to another Real Talk. Let's get started. Okay, back for another Real Talk. Today is kind of like the last, I think, background one, at least for right now, that I'm going to be doing. I'm gonna go into a little bit more of like how I got to where I am, my work experience before this, and probably a few other things before we start getting into, what's been happening to me lately and how I feel about those things. So that's kind of what we're starting with. I wanted to say, the last video, your guys' comments really, I don't know what the right way to say it, but it just meant a lot to me. The way that you guys were vulnerable back with me, and you guys do enjoy me being vulnerable. I don't know, it just means a lot to me. I just have really appreciated you guys liking this content and just maybe want to make more of it. So thanks for that. You guys are the best. I know that probably wasn't the easiest video to watch because it was kind of sad at some points, but that's okay. After we get done with all of the old trauma, we can start talking about all the new trauma. So who doesn't want to know about that? If you're wondering why I'm not streaming this week, well, I think that this should be posted when I am in the Dominican for my sister's wedding. So that's where I'm at, but I'm still trying to make some content for you guys. This is the first big family vacation wedding thing that is happening, so well, that's gonna be an interesting time. But basically, I think that I need to start back in high school. It's right at the end of high school. It's when I first started doing work. I played sports all through high school, so I couldn't really hold a job because I had to work, and that's a lot of the times when I was in off season, I would do a lot of my job shadowing and volunteer hours and stuff while I was in high school and doing sports because it took up so much of my time. I did a side CNA type job in the recovery room, my summers. But other than that, I was traveling a lot. I played so much volleyball. If you guys were wondering and didn't know, I played volleyball in high school. And it was very time consuming for me to play volleyball. So I decided that I wanted to graduate early because I was in this program that allowed me to take half of my classes at school and half of them I would go to the hospital and take classes there. So I already wasn't at the school for the majority of the day, and this is my first semester of senior year. And through that, I found out that I could apply to work in the ER as soon as I turned 18. So literally on my birthday, I was sitting there, on my 18th birthday, I was sitting there filling out an application to work in the ER. I really didn't expect them to hire me because that's pretty young, but they did. I was the youngest person that they had ever hired to do my job, which now looking back at it, probably for the best. But I did get that job, and so working in the ER, that was my first real job. It was not pretty. I think that I was very sheltered in a way. I went to a small school, I had a lot of siblings, we just kind of did stuff on our own or with my friends. I was very sheltered in that way, and working in the ER, you see everything from good times to very, very bad times, and learning how to communicate to people when they're in potentially the worst day of their life or a worst time in their life, when they're in the ER and something very traumatic has happened to them or a loved one. Learning how to communicate with people in that way is very, at such a young age, is very hard to do, but I think I got pretty good at it. I never got in trouble or anything. Well, technically I did get fired from this job, but not because of my fault. It wasn't my fault. I swear it wasn't my fault. They didn't receive records of my shot, my shot record, and ew, I just killed a skeeter. Anyways, my job did not get my shot record, even though I sent it to them. I didn't even know that I was fired because I was working part-time at this point, and I went into work and none of my stuff was working, and so then I went to my boss's office and I was like, hi, I can't work in, and then he was like, oh my god, HR fired you. We didn't even know. And I'm like, what? I've been working all morning. What? Not good. Probably could have been a lot of lawsuits. Whatever. I dropped it. It was time for me to move on. But anyways, back to what I was saying is I did get pretty good at it. Going through stuff there's a bunch of different positions at my job where one would be in charge of the psych patients, one would be in triage, which is the waiting room, and one would be running around the floor, and then one would be in charge of traumas and stuff, and you would rotate throughout those shifts and those jobs. And so I would be very close and personal with psych patients and sometimes they're very combative, and like I got hit or spit on or sexually harassed like multiple times. Being 18 years old, that wasn't like the best thing for me, I don't think. But then also like the other side of it would be the traumas where I would be in level 1 traumas when people would be dying and I'd be doing CPR and I would be watching just these horrible things happen to people. And, you know, when I was in that situation, it didn't really bother me. Like I can like turn my brain off. I can act like it's all a simulation. It's been said as a gift. I don't know. It's kind of scary how numbing I can make it. And I didn't really feel any of the trauma from working in the ER until like a year or so after I stopped working in the ER. Because at that time it seemed so normal and so natural and like everyone was going through that. And so it didn't feel like that horrible until I got out of that situation, and then it started bothering me, and I have a lot of anxiety, especially with like driving and stuff that it's like given me. Like if you ever watch my stream, I've talked about it before, how I really hate driving. And a lot of that came from just like horrible car accidents that I saw or something like that. Also, like I'm horrified to have a child. The horrible things that happen to children. I cannot even explain to you how much like stress and anxiety even thinking about having a child like gives me. I mean, like just watching that happen is horrible. Probably the worst thing ever. I think one of the worst traumas that I had to deal with was some guy. They were at a gas station, they were on drugs, they got a tank of gas, and the guy was sitting in the front seat with the tank of gas, and for some reason, they decided to light a cigarette with a gas can on their lap. Don't know why they did that. So the emergency room that I worked at was a level 1 trauma center and burn center, so we got those patients. And he was just really burnt. Like looking at all of them, they were all very burnt, but this guy in particular, his eyes were burnt, and like just the way that he was yelling and the way that he was looking, and like his eyes, he was blind obviously from his eyes being burnt, but he still had them open and looking, and it was just, that was like probably one of the worst things that's like happened. That like I still think about. Sometimes I have nightmares about it. But at the end of the day, like I know what we were doing like saved him, and I am happy that we like saved him. But it just, that was like pretty traumatic for me. And I don't want to like, I want to spare some like all the details for you guys because, well, 1, HIPAA, and 2, I just don't really feel like that's something, oh, you guys really need to like hear about, because it is pretty traumatizing. But that was, for example, I mean, like the traumas were very intense. So all that happening to me like at such a young age, like I wouldn't recommend that job to anyone that was my age, but that's what I did. So that was my first real job, and I worked there for years until the pandemic. And then what's weird is where I lived, like at the beginning of the pandemic, nobody was leaving or anywhere, but like COVID wasn't really like there yet. And so we had such a low patient base because nobody was leaving their house. And so I got furloughed, which is like a temporary, like they didn't need me. So I wasn't working until I was bored at home playing Animal Crossing every day, believe it or not. So then I was like, you know what? I'm going to apply to work at Walmart. Why Walmart? I don't know. So when I was working at Walmart, I got the job. And I was a cashier at Walmart, and this was in the middle of the pandemic. So the people that you would see or the things that people were buying were just so strange. But I worked as a cashier for like, I think 6 or 7 months. And, you know, everything that you would think about working at Walmart is what working at Walmart is. You know, my manager was just like funny. She was great. She was just like older. Her and her husband both worked at Walmart. Like my coworkers, some of them didn't like me, which I never really did anything. So I don't know why. But the ones that did like me were great. But like we would just do random stuff. Like after our shift, why was my manager smoking in the parking lot with my coworkers? I don't know. Was it funny? Yeah. Was it entertaining? Yeah. But why? I don't know. But that's just like how working at Walmart is. And then people would try to come in and buy alcohol with fake IDs and like weird stuff. Like, or they would buy like 14 bottles of hand sanitizer at the time. Or one time this guy like came through and like bought like 7 bundles of bananas and then like some lube and like You can guess what he was doing. I don't know. I didn't ask any questions. That was just not what I needed to know. So at the same time that I was working at Walmart, my hair salon opened back up, and I'm really good friends with my hair lady. I love her. And they needed someone to run the front desk. And so I was only working still at Walmart for part-time. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm not doing anything else. Like, I can come in and work and help you guys. So I was working at Walmart, furloughed at the ER, and working at the hair salon. Okay? These are all just like side quests. I don't really know why I was doing it. I just was doing it. No, actually, that's not true. I think that once I started working in the ER, like, I was working like 60 to 80 hours. No, not 60 to 80 hours. I was working 50 to 60 hours a week, which is like the maximum time you can work a week. So I was like making a whole lot of money, especially with like pandemic pay and overtime and stuff. And I got like very addicted to the feeling of like making money because I had never like had that option. So then when I stopped working, I was like, I'm bored. I'm not doing anything but playing Animal Crossing and eating food at home. So I'm gonna work. And so that's what I did. So I worked at the salon. That was like not very eventful, pretty boring. I was just kind of doing it as like help. And then I ended up quitting it. And I ended up quitting working as a cashier as well so I did this was up until like my junior year of college. And then that's when my ex got sick. And so then I like kind of quit everything and technically got fired from the ER, which whatever. That's just such a strange thing that happened to me. So that is kind of like my work experience from there. And then I started like streaming. The reason that I tell you all this because is like, I think the most obvious, like it is so obvious when I meet other streamers, other content creators, like it is so obvious on whether or not they've like worked a real job in their life or they've gone to school. And you know, some people don't have the same path, and it's not that they're any lesser or like anything, but there's a lot of like critical social skills that like some people lack because they didn't go to school or finish school, or they didn't have like a real like job in person. And you know, when you start getting so used to talking to a camera, like even sometimes I have this problem with eye contact. When I get nervous now, I notice myself like my eyes are darting around. I'm not necessarily making eye contact, and I used to not be that way, but since I don't see people as much, like I have to really work on that. And so for me, it's like I have all this life experience, all this job experience, and so many siblings, and then like I'm going and meeting these people, and I'm like trying to have conversations with them, and it's like, oh my word, like there's just like a very clear disconnect, and I think it's very interesting and should be studied. But another thing is since where I grew up and these jobs and like people at Walmart, there's all these housewives that are just lonely, so they want to talk to you and they want to tell you everything. And then like working in the ER, like you know everything because they're telling you, or like something horrible just happened to them and like they're vulnerable and they're telling you everything. And so one thing for me that I really struggled with, and you know, even sometimes I catch myself like talking to chat and I'll like be asking them questions, I'll be like, that's like a little nosy of me. And I think it's because I'm so used to people being so like vulnerable and stuff, and I never realized it, like how private people are. Like I never mean to be rude, and I didn't ever like perceive it as rude until I started working like online, I guess. I've gotten better at it, but I guess I was really nosy, and like I didn't mean to ever do that, but it's probably just the way I was raised in my like work experience. And so if I've ever asked you a question that was a little bit nosy, I'm so sorry. It's just because I care. It's like a random little tangent there for you guys. I think that my favorite job was still the ER, even though how horrible it was, but I think I grew a lot as a person. You know, I never really thought this, but there's worse things than death. And I think that working in the ER and learning that at such a young age was really hard to do, because, you know, like when you think about like, oh, what's your worst fear? Obviously like dying, but like sometimes you're in situations and things happen, and you know, there's worse things than death, and it's a very humbling experience. You have to be very empathetic and, you know, talk to everyone, and you might like just put yourself in those shoes, and a lot of times like it's really hard to do. I think learning all those skills at like such a young age was traumatizing, but also like one of my biggest blessings. So like I wouldn't trade, you know, wanting to go to school to be a doctor and trying to do all these things and getting this work experience for anything really, because I think it's made me a better person. Do I wish now that I maybe went to school and maybe did more like a marketing or brand or, you know, more content like focused like degree? Yeah, probably. But like I could always go back to school if I really wanted to. Overall, I think it's like really made me a better person. And so like I'm like glad that I like get to share that with you guys. Really overall, I think I've had like a very unique situation. Like when I still wake up every day and I'm like, how did I get here? I know how I got here, but like how did I really get here? Doesn't make any sense. Also, thank you to whoever bought me this eyelash curler and my setting powder off my throne. You guys are so kind to me. Like, I wake up every day and I'm like, how did I get here? You know, and then I'm just thankful to be here, really. Oh, sorry. I think really, you know, I think that these first couple episodes of the Real Talk have been like very special, and I think that I'm really glad that I've made them. I don't think that every one of these Real Talks is going to be as, not sad, but like serious. I think that like the next few are going to be pretty lighthearted. I mean, still relatable and still very real and unfiltered, but for this first like couple, I really wanted to be like set a base of like, this is what happened to me, this is how it happened, and this is how I got here and how I felt about it, because then you guys will know more of like where other stories came from. Like I really want you guys to like ask what you want to know and like what you want to hear about. Like I could do one on my high school stories and all the like trouble I got into there and all that drama, or I can do one about making friends and how that's been, especially like being in your 20s and how hard it is to make friends after college, or finding my hobbies that I've been trying to do, or growing up with 5 siblings or 6 of us. But really anything I could talk about it. And maybe this becomes more of like a here's what's been going on and more of an update kind of thing. We can really make this whatever we want it to be, but I really appreciated all of the comments on the last video, and it made me realize like how many of you guys care or related to it, and like that's all I want this to be, is I want it to be real. I want it to be relatable. I don't want you guys to sit there and be like confused on why I'm talking about something, or like not interested in what I'm talking about, or feel like it's not very relatable, because that would suck. I think I really covered like the majority of the stuff that I wanted to say about that. But at the end of the day, like I really do like making this kind of content, so I'm glad that you guys are here. And like if you guys have watched all the way to the end, thank you. That really helps. And liking and obviously subscribing. But please let me know if you guys have any questions, and if you ever want to like come and talk to me in real time. I'm always streaming. I stream every day. So once I get back from my vacation, wedding, same thing, you know. So that's where I'm at with that. Once I get back from vacation, I will be live again every day. So yeah, I'll talk to you guys later.